excited to be here, and I've been looking forward to meeting you all, and I know you just had commencement, so I'm really delighted that after that you're not just taking a couple of well-deserved days off, and so you stuck around to listen to me. So what I'm going to do is tell you the way I have organized my presentation, and I'm an economist, and so we are used to in our seminars being interrupted for questions at any point in time. So feel free to interrupt me at any time. So I'm going to give you a little bio here, and then I've organized my presentation around the UMKC strategic plan. And so I'll talk about how my experiences intersect with the UMKC strategic plan, all right? So that's our plan. Okay, so I'm a professor of economics. My own areas of interest are applied statistics. So I'm an econometrician. I've been very interested in education policy, and my most recent research has been in that area. I'm very interested in program and policy evaluation, and that actually works out well these days because there's so much accountability and measuring success, and that, so all the looking at data kind of fits into my training. I've been dean of the Andrew Young School now for 5 years, almost 5 years exactly. And so you'll know a little bit about that. The Andrew Young School is ranked by the Networks Association of Schools of Public Affairs and Administration. And we are ranked number 23 out of about 270 schools of public affairs in the U.S. Our policy school, there's probably 100 faculty. There are 4 academic departments. So we have criminal justice, criminology. We have the economics department for the university. There's just the one department. It's in the Andrew Young School. We've got public management and policy and the School of Social Work. There are about 7 research centers. So there's about 100 faculty, but there are about 80 staff. 40 of those staff are professional staff, PhDs or MD PhDs, that work in some of the research centers. And another thing I would mention, although poor Lawrence has heard this so many times now, this past year I've been part of this Academy for Innovative Higher Education Leadership. My president, Mark Becker, nominated me for this group. It's about, the cohort is 24 people from across the U.S., so we have private schools, so there are faculty or administrators from Georgetown, from Arizona State, from Cincinnati, from Louisville, so just a wide variety of private and public colleges and universities, and we're talking about all the big issues in higher education, the landscape of higher ed, and it's just been an incredible experience for me to learn. So I think I've gotten a much better feel for what's going on nationwide as well as what's going on at Georgia State University. And so some of the things that I will mention have come from that, and I'd be happy to answer other questions about that. Okay. Now, I took a careful look at the strategic plan for UMKC. I'm a believer in strategic plans. I believe that it's good to have goals that you're working towards. Not that it's not important to have flexibility, it is. You've got to be flexible and go with successes and recognize sometimes when things have not succeeded. But a strategic plan is a good thing. The strategic plan, number one, goal there is put student success at the center, and I could not agree more with that as a very critical goal. That has also been a goal at Georgia State University, and our strategic plan is student success. And did I switch? Hey, come back. Oops. Don't turn off your computer. Okay. I do have a few other things to say about that. Just so you kind of know the landscape. Georgia State University has a very, very diverse student body. So we have no majority population. So the ethnic makeup of our students is the ethnic makeup of the state of Georgia. And we have a very economically challenged group of undergraduates. Over 50% of our undergraduates are eligible for Pell Grants, which, as you know, that means a very, very seriously economic challenge. And we have, over the past 15, 12 years, we've raised the graduation rate 20 percentage points from like 30 in the 30s, 32% to about 54% for graduating in the 6-year window. More or equally important to that is if you take our data and merge it with the National Clearinghouse data, so then we know that if our students have transferred out of state, if they've completed college elsewhere, the graduation rates are in the 70%, 77%. And very importantly, there aren't any gaps. The African American students have that 77% graduation rate, as do the Hispanic students, as do the Caucasian students. And so that's an important achievement, and one that we, frankly, we're very proud of at Georgia State. All of us in the different colleges, all of us have participated in various ways. What I wanted to say is I know that your student population, your diversity, is reflective of the city, the metro area, right? The diversity in the students. And you also have the goal to increase the you're already doing great. I mean, you really are. The graduation rates are good, but you have as a goal to increase the graduation rates. And so I thought I would talk a little bit about the way that I've participated in some of the programs and the initiatives that have worked to improve our graduation rate. And they're listed on my slide, which you will shortly see. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was advisement. 6 or 7 years ago, the ratio of advisors to students was about 1 advisor to every 600 students. That's not very good, right? Our president was able to go to our Board of Regents and get a special allocation of funds to increase and improve the advisement. So we hired an enormous, over 40 new advisors came onto campus, and our advisement model is decentralized in the colleges. So in the Andrew Young School, we have an Office of Academic Assistants. We, I think, doubled the number of people in that office. But we also created a large pool of undergraduate advisors that have an affiliation with the college, but they're really the freshman, sophomore advisors. And at the same time we increased the individual, the number of people involved, we also instituted from the Educational Advisory Board a lot of electronic tools around advisement. And so that students would know, if they declare a major, that the advisement tool would track them and say, you're on track, or if they were missing a benchmark, it would let them know you've got to see an advisor, you've got to see. And the value of this tool to us has been that the advisors know immediately with the students. And so when a student comes in for advisement, they can have up-to-date information of the courses that they're enrolled in, and then can give the personal advice, you've got to be in this second-year biology class, or no, you should be taking that psychology class now. And it really improved the quality of the advisement. And so I know that there's a lot of people raise a lot of questions about those e-tools, that e-advisor, and those are they're absolutely reasonable questions. I myself have been interested in doing, it's kind of a design thinking exercise. I'd really like to know how the students interact with that e-tools. When they look at their smartphone, which as far as I can see, they look at every minute of the day, including walking across the street, And so you worry about that. But I want to know how they perceive it. If they get a red flag or a warning, does this crush their spirit, or does this motivate them to go to the advisor, or do they just blow it off? I mean, I think we need, in order to tweak these tools, they always need to be improved. We need to know how they're interacting with it. And so that is I said, folks in my school of social work, they could set up a focus group and look at this, lickety-split, we'd have some answers here, but so far we haven't done that part of it. But that change in advisement has been a big part of the story, making it much more proactive. Another thing that we have done is very targeted financial aid. And the specific example I gave before is we did, well, I would like to call it microfinance, but it's a grant, not a loan. The advisors would look at students that were maybe 15, 20, 30 hours from graduation, and they would see if they had been dropped. There's that fee reconciliation day where the students have to have their fees paid, their tuition paid, or they get dropped from all their classes. So the advisement office in all the colleges, they would look down there and they would identify students who'd been dropped. And some of them were dropped because they were missing $325 or $875, but small amounts, but not small to them. And so we made grants to those students. And we'd say, okay, we'll pay the rest of your fees, but in return for that, you will go to a financial management course this semester. You will go to a study skills class this semester. And so this would enable them, they wouldn't lose that semester in college. I mean, that made a big difference right there. Okay, here we are. So targeted financial aid. And like I said, that was tied to study skills. So we were hoping almost all of our students have some kind of work. So one of the things that I did, our institutional research had a lot of data, and there were a couple years spent of trying to make those data sets compatible and talk to each other and clean them up enough to look at. We took a big set of students and we merged them. In my college, we housed the ES 202 records, the employer unemployment insurance records. And so we were able to match across students and find out, how much students were working. And it was shocking, the amount that students were working. So we really felt like that they needed the study skills courses and the financial management. So those are some of the big things. There are also some smaller things that along the way do you have big classes here? Or a lot of your intro classes are quite large. We introduced supplemental instructors in those classes, so peer instructors. So an undergraduate student who'd done well in microeconomics, then would serve and get paid as a supplemental instructor. And so we looked at the engagement of students and measured the engagement of students in those classes with the supplemental instructors. And it's a correlation, not a causation, but there is some evidence that working with the supplemental instructors decreases DFW rates. So, that seems like a fairly minor thing, but it helped in some of those tough courses. A big problem was scheduling. And our students, if they got closed out of certain gateway courses, that could put them off track for a whole year, right? You don't get into that biology class, that psychology class, and now you can't register for it again until the next fall. And so we're still beating on that one. That one's not, there's problems in finding lab space, there's problems in finding times. I mean, we can offer classes at 6 o'clock on Friday evening, but we can't force people to enroll in them, right? And so, we haven't got that solved. But I mean, even knowing what those sticking points are is an important piece of it. Another important part of the advisement are the students who are changing majors. So prior to this, if you had a student who had declared they wanted to be a marketing major, and so at the end of about 50 or 60 or 70 hours, they don't have the GPA to get into marketing. And so in the business school, they'd say, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to complete this. So then they would be kind of wandering around with no clear help, focused, targeted help on helping them transition to another major. And so that's been a big area of improvement. All those things. My president, Mark Becker, often says that people ask him, what's the one thing I can do that will make a difference in our completion rates? And the answer is, of course, there's not one thing. all of these different initiatives add something. Now, we could pull apart the data a little bit and try to find some causality there, and we probably would, but I think all of these things add on. Okay, so increase enrollment. I know that your goal is to increase the graduation rate by about 10 percentage points, right, over the next few years, and I think that's doable. If you look at where you are, I mean, you're in pretty good shape now. I think that's very doable. And I also think it's important, I mean, and this is why I care so passionately about the Urban Research University. I think it's important that we don't improve completion rates by limiting access. Access and excellence, you know, that's the story. That's what we want to be known as. And it would be easy to improve graduation rates if we just don't admit the lower students, right? Or the economically challenged students. No, we're not fulfilling our mission if we do that. So access and excellence. Okay, I liked the point in your strategic plan, the lever, about let's hang on to a small college experience. And I think that's a really valuable, it really gives students a real close allegiance to the university. So that's a good thing. It really provides a high quality, even in a large institution. And so I look at the Honors College, the different kinds of things at the programs of the Honors College. That's a real key part of that small college experience. We developed at the Andrew Young School, we developed an honors track, a research honors track for our undergraduates. They could be majoring in any of our areas, but we gave them a path to follow in terms so they could graduate the highest honors, research honors. Part of that was we call them a perspectives course, and all of our students, all undergraduates are required to take 2 perspectives course, which is supposed to be really kind of a broad introduction to different areas. So I actually went back in the classroom and taught this perspectives course. It was using evidence in policy debates. And so we talked about big policy issues, and we talked about using evidence versus opinion, and it was I thought it was really a great class. And some of the students did too. But that was some of them did not. But that was a part of that research honors track. We have built a lot into these freshman learning communities. And that gives students in a great big class of incoming freshmen, that gives students a cohort. And so they take classes together. And I don't mean they're the only people in the class, but it'll be the same 15 or 18 students will be in their English class and in their political science class together to give that cohort. And there's also what we call GSU 1010, which is a small group, that is just the small group with one faculty member that provides a mentoring. They have different areas of interest depending on the interests of the students. And interestingly, there is pretty good evidence that participants in these freshman learning communities do have a greater persistence rate and do proceed to graduate. And there's even some causal evidence there. It's like the students who need it most are the ones who sign up for this, as opposed to just cherry picking off the already motivated students. And that, I think, that cohort group, it gives you a small college experience. This is something that's really interested me. The Summer Success Academy. Every year in the applicant pool, there are people who are very marginal. And prior to the Summer Success Academy, these students, you could look, they did not persist. Their grades were not good. So GSU started offering conditional acceptances. You can come to GSU as a freshman, but you've got to participate in this Summer Success Academy, which was 2 courses that counted. I mean, they were college courses, and kind of study skills mentoring. And so the students in that Student Success Academy, these were at the margin, right? They were at the low end of the distribution in terms of the record they were coming in with. They do better. Semester after Summer Success Academy, their first semester. Their second semester, their GPAs are higher than the students, freshmen who were admitted unconditionally. And so that's kind of an interesting idea and helps some of those marginal students do a little bit better. So the freshman learning community now is an opt-out. Every freshman, you don't have to do it, but you have to actively opt out rather than choosing to do it. It's an opt-out versus opt-in strategy. And the Summer Success Academy is the same. I mean, you don't have a choice there. If you want to be at GSU, you have to participate. I think the last part I would want to speak about that relates to the small college experience is experiential education. So in all the majors in the Andrew Young School, with the exception of economics, there's a required internship. There are internships available, and a lot of economic students do it, but it's not a requirement. But in social work and criminal justice, etc., so that internship is a real-world experience. So that counts as an experience, right? Study abroad. A lot of our students, I was saying this earlier, a lot of our students haven't been out of Georgia. And giving them the ability to go to Turkey, to go to China, to go, to these different study abroad, it's hugely transformational. There's internships that are in DC. So there's a lot of different possibilities. I have taken it as a development priority for myself to get donations to create an experience fund that will allow students. I redirected, as my first year zine, I redirected some money towards study abroad scholarships, but I want to broaden that and I want to attract more dollars, and I have had some success so far doing that, so that students will have access to those scholarships. You lower the cost of going on a study abroad, and more people will take it up. So that again is an experience that you get at small liberal arts schools, and that it's available to students at an urban research university. Okay, let's talk about the lever in the UMKC strategic plan about leading in the life and health sciences. Now, of course, you've already got a very strong base and a very strong reputation. I was born in Missouri, actually, and what I knew from growing up here is that the strong reputation in the health sciences and the strong reputation in the arts. Those were kind of the carryovers that went all the way down into the boot heel of Missouri where I grew up. And of course, at GSU, we're not on the same level. We don't have a medical school. So, I mean, we're clearly from a different playing field there. But our strategic plan at GSU also had a very clear focus on increasing our footprint in health sciences. And so the university has done things to increase our imprint there, and in the Andrew Young School. So there, I wrote some of the things there. The physical infrastructure for health sciences has increased. We built, so far, 1.5 new buildings, wet labs for the life sciences. We've had a strategic initiative towards hiring established scientists who are grant active, that come and sometimes bring their teams, and so that's been an increase. The School of Public Health was pulled out as a standalone school. Now, in my own college, the work we've done is I've invested very heavily in pushing forward the health sciences where it's appropriate for us to do so. So I'm a believer that that's an important thing. The big thing that we do there is translational research. We have the Georgia Health Policy Center in the Andrew Young School, which is phenomenal. It just does really interesting things in the translational. This year, they've already got about, I think it's over $7 million in external funding already this year. And they do work in there's a lot of end-of-life care, there's a lot of Georgia's rural and with not much access to care. There's a lot of work they do there. They do work educating our legislature on how to evaluate or think about health policy issues, and that's a hard job. But I've also, translational research is very important. I've also we've put faculty hires into health informatics, just made a fantastic hire in that area last year, and also behavioral health. So we've got a lot of economists who work in health economics. And so these folks now are writing grants joint with people in public health. So we've pushed forward in that area ourselves. The interdisciplinary hires, that's been a focus, strategic priority for the university. And many of you already know that if you read requests for proposals, if you read from the Department of Education or for the National Institutes of Health, they talk about interdisciplinary teams. And so we've made hires that have experience in that area or are open to that. And clearly this is not going to work if it's top down. This is a bottom-up thing. So you find faculty who already have these interests and you support those interests and you give them incentives to do this work. And there's been some very interesting interdisciplinary work done between faculty in our school and faculty in public health in developing countries. So there's some really interesting work going on. Okay, community engagement. We're in a city, right? This is key. This is key to the mission, key to the success. It's what we ought to be doing in any urban institution. Community engagement, leverage that urban environment. And so we want to be of the city, not apart from it. There are so many different important points to talk about here that it's hard to know. I know that there's already excellent collaborations and partnerships going on in the School of Business and the School of Medicine. I know that, and I think there's all kinds of opportunities there. This is really critical. I already talked a little bit about experiential education. A part of our strategic plan, we called it the Cities Initiative. And this has been a goal to have broader involvement in the city. In the Andrew Young School, we're very much engaged in tax policy issues, in health policy issues. Our criminal justice, there's very close ties with the Atlanta police and all the other different kinds of, Atlanta's a hub for state government, but also there's a lot of federal government that have offices there, so there's a lot of crossover and engagement there. An interesting thing that I haven't mentioned is that one of the things that I've done is I've hired professors, a couple of professors of practice, and if I had a little bit more money, I would hire more. And these are mostly retired individuals who are really not, they really still have, they want to be engaged, they want to continue to work. And so they come into the school, maybe they'll teach a class or maybe they won't. I hired a wonderful man who worked in the philanthropic community. And he's worked a lot with our Nonprofit Leadership Alliance students and creating internships there. It's just been a really good connection. More recently, I've hired a man who was president of the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. And he's working in that city's initiative. And he knows everybody in town, and he can open doors that were previously closed to us. And that is a way, that's an involvement. And if you think about that as kind of a cycle, these professors of practice come in for 2 years or 3 years, and then they cycle out. And then it's a really good way to bring different ideas and different experiences into the university and helps you make those connections. Another thing I want to mention there is the Creative Media Institute. The Georgia State recently got it's over $22 million grant from the Woodruff Foundation to create an institute. There's a huge film industry in Georgia now, and because there's huge tax breaks, and we can talk about the tax aspects of it at some other time, but it definitely it's a development issue. So the Creative Media Institute is certainly adding to the development of downtown Atlanta, and it's also creating the workforce, who go, this is an area I'm not as familiar with, but above the line and below the line employees. So you need people that understand how to work the technology, right? in the media. And so this is an interesting new avenue that's I think it's highly likely to be successful. Okay, research and external funding. That's a lever in the strategic plan. I took a look at the research report from 2014, and the really good news here at UMKC is that the funding is broad-based. So across the different schools and colleges, there's external funding coming in. And I think that's really a good thing. You know, it's easier to ramp up if you've already got a base. It's a goal for my home institution as well. In 2012, GSU funding, external grants and contracts was 65 million, 66 million. It came up to about 82 million in 2014, and we're on track to break 100 million, although we haven't gotten there yet for fiscal year 2015. In my own college, we've seen very steady growth in our external grants and contracts. And so, you know, I got the numbers there from just under 9 million in 2010 to 14 million in 2014. Worried about that fiscal year, so if I issue a correction, you'll understand that I'm a little bit worried about that. That might be 2000. That might supposed to be 2015 there for the 14 million, and about I think just under 70% of that, somewhere between 60 and 70% is federal funds or federal pass-through. And so, you know, how do you do that, right? How do you increase external grants and contracts? There's really two ways, right? We can grow our own, so we can take our junior faculty and we can give them resources, help them in terms of writing and reviewing proposals. We can reward them. You know, if you write this proposal, you know, you can have maybe a course reduction for working on this proposal. So you grow your own. It's really important to think about the interdisciplinary part of that and to think long and hard about that. I think that it's really easy in the academy to talk about, oh yeah, we're all about interdisciplinary work. And then, you know, where push comes to shove is, is your department or the senior people in your department going to say, well, that's not in a sociology journal or that's not in an economics journal? I mean, that, you have to really think about that to make that work. But it can work. It does work. And so getting that interdisciplinary mindset in there, that's one of the pieces for increasing grants and contracts. Another piece of that is, so you're growing your junior people, and also you're hiring in some experienced people. So one of our strategic initiatives, I hired a faculty member who does a lot of education policy. So in the first year, he had $2 million in new funding. And so there are some hires, and he's helping some of the junior people. So they're hiring people, the right people, can also make a difference. So if you think about that, as a goal, and you start breaking it down into taking the steps, you know, incentives work, right? Incentives, we can move that forward. We can move the needle on that. The infrastructure here looks pretty strong, and there looks to be some support. So I think that's a very important goal. Okay, this is another goal in the strategic plan. It looks to me like you're doing exactly the right stuff. That downtown arts campus, I mean, what a great idea that is. The economic impact, development impact of the arts is pretty big. I don't know if that's been measured recently, but I mean, that clearly is what led to that $22 million gift from Woodruff, is that idea of the economic development. Kansas City looks pretty good. It doesn't look to be, I mean, the downtown of Atlanta in the 80s was just falling apart. I mean, all the firms were leaving downtown. And so, in some ways, Georgia State, the university, as it has grown, it saved the downtown, you know, because it built up a lot of revitalized a lot of those areas. And so I haven't seen the downtown Kansas City. I haven't looked at it through those same eyes, but I would think that some of that's true there. And I think it'd certainly be the role of the provost to look broadly at the impact of the arts and to promote that. Okay, embrace diversity. You know, diversity is it's absolutely crucial to our mission. Again, an urban research university. This is an important part of what we do. Why do we care about that, right? Well, our students are going to go out and work in the workplaces that they are going to be in are very diverse, and they need to be able to thrive in that workplace. It enriches our research, right, to have different points of view and different ideas. And look at our communities. If you look at our communities, we're diverse across ethnicities, economically diverse, diverse racially and across sexual orientation. All this diversity enriches the community, and we have to embrace that. And what I mean by that is, it's not a goal that we say, oh, check that off. You know, I hired a underrepresented minority as a faculty member. I'm done with that. No, you're not ever done with that, are you? So always looking for making the hires, which is it's not an easy thing. The national marketplace in diversity isn't as robust as we would like it to be. Again, urban research universities, we have a lot to offer, and we are a lot more attractive than colleges in small towns, right? So we have more capability. But so it's something we work at in terms of hiring. It's also something that we work at in terms of making sure those people have the resources they need to be successful. Whether it's mentoring, whether it's just checking in very frequently to find out how they're doing. I mean, it's not, I have a colleague at a large Midwest university that I won't name who said they hire and they stay there 2 years and then they leave. Well, that's not helping us at all, right? So this is really a part of the mission of the university. We've been successful in Atlanta in hiring, but it's not accidental, right? And we've worked on that. It's an important part. And frankly, it doesn't hurt to have Ambassador Young show up at a recruiting reception once in a while. So that can also be kind of a useful tool. Okay. Revenues. Be entrepreneurial about revenues. Financing higher education, that's the national conversation, isn't it? So our state legislatures are saying, I don't know what you people do, you don't work on Fridays, we know that, and we're going to cut you back. Or that's what they say in Georgia. Yes, we do, we are open on Fridays. So, you know, we're not going to get the state funding of higher ed, the arrow's not going to turn around and move in a different direction, is it? In the past, I don't know, 25 years, state funding as a proportion of total funding at Georgia State has gone from over 60% to under 25%. And at the same time that they're cutting back the state funding, they're telling us not to raise tuition anymore, or they're limiting the increases in tuition. And that's not a healthy recipe, is it? You don't have to be an accountant or an economist to see that that doesn't really work out very well for us. And so, again, there's not a single answer there. There's not one initiative that we can do and say, we have plenty of money now, but you got to work them all. So continuing education and executive education is a very good, at the college level, these are good initiatives that we should support. You know, a nice example there is the Atlanta Police Leadership Academy. When I was first dean, the chair of the criminal justice said, you know, I think we can develop this leadership academy for the public safety professionals in Atlanta. And it brings in, so I said, do it. You know, I'll pay you a month's summer pay. You put this together. So it brings in about $250,000 into the college every year. And the police officers, they have kind of a certificate ceremony, and they're very pleased. You know, there's different levels of it. And they're very pleased about that. We do a lot of we have a lot of expertise in public budgeting and public debt, public finance, and we do some, in the Andrew Young School, a number of certificate programs. Sometimes they're international, like we have a whole group of people from the Ministry of Finance from Vietnam came and took a 2-week course with us. And there's courses like that. None of those are going to solve our budget problems, but they all help around the edges. There's a lot of professional programs, specialized master's degrees that are either premium programs or that attract a different group, a niche, in the market that we didn't know before. So clearly, there's so much I would have to learn here about, what's already here. Is there an MS in analytics, for example? I mean, that's a program that, given what's going on with Google Fiber and the collaborations in the community, I mean, that might be a real something that might really work. And so that's a possibility. We want to do this in social work. We want to create a specialized social work master's in community practice, community networks. And of course, but social work students typically can't pay a premium fee. So we're trying to work out, how to really deliver that. We've done some stuff with a summer institute for international students. So we bring in students for just a couple of courses and an experience from different countries that'll apply and come and spend 6 weeks with us. And they get college credit. And then, of course, we want them to know about our graduate programs, and we want to introduce them to Georgia State in case they want to do some further work there. So all these little pieces can add to the bottom line. Can make it just a little bit easier to support your faculty, to provide some of the incentives for grant writing or the other things that you want them to do, to give them a break in terms of, let's have a semester off, reward your research active faculty once in a while, so they'll keep on producing. Okay, so that's what really I wanted to talk about, some of the things that I care about and that I'm interested in, things I've worked on. So, I've been dean now at the Andrew Young School for 5 years, and it's been great. I mean, I have loved this job. I really feel like I pushed the school forward. I have fantastic people that support me and that support the school, that care about the school. It's been great. So in terms of student success, in terms of research funding, recognition, reputational, and all the community, the new community outreach and engagement, all that's been great. And I think that if you look at UMKC, there's so many pillars of excellence across the university. I've looked into I've dipped my hand barely in all the different things. So this is really an exciting opportunity, I think, for the next provost. And I'd like to be part of it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. What you got?
Well, I'd like to make a suggestion. It seems like every time there's a shortfall in money or a shortfall in a home, I'd like to suggest that your next study should be the real economics of hiring more administrators, because that seems to be the traditional solution. Hire more people when there's a shortfall. And so what is the real economics in hiring more administrators? Which, all right.
So are you talking about administrative bloat?
Yeah.
So, that we have fewer faculty?
Anyway, that's my suggestion.
Okay. Well, I mean, that is certainly a reasonable suggestion, and you want to be as lean as you can be in those areas and still get the job done. So I appreciate that suggestion, and I know that that's a real concern to a lot of people.
Thank you for your presentation. Yeah. Thanks for your your presentation. And your background and what you've talked about today has demonstrates a lot of expertise in the social sciences and the health sciences. You talked about our arts campus downtown. There seems to be a bit of a hole around the humanities in your presentation. I was wondering what challenges you, from your perspective, you see for the humanities and how you might solve them.
Well, I think that, interestingly, it's humanities that do, and some of the social sciences, that do the base for the whole college experience, right? And if you look at responsibility-centered management, those kind of budget models, you'll find that you're getting a lot of bang for the buck out of the humanities. And something that's not, I think, clearly understood. It costs a lot to do research. We know that. I mean, the big funded research. And so I think that there's certainly a lot of value added. Now, you're asking, I have not had direct responsibility for like an English department or a modern classical languages department. And all I can say to that is I'm a total team player. And for example, in my first year as dean, I went on a merger and acquisition spree, and I merged in. That's when social work and criminal justice came into it. And the criminal justice faculty, I had a better understanding, but social work, that was really new to me. And my idea of social work, I sat down with the person who was then director of the school, and I said, teach me about this, help me learn. And so we talked through it. We learned. So, for example, I go to the university committee for tenure and promotion, and I talk about my disciplines and say, so I needed to know. I need help me help you on this. And I wish I had a whole school full of social work faculty now. They are wonderful. And in fact, my associate dean is now from the School of Social Work. So, I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you can have a learning curve and you can climb up it if you're willing. And so I think that there's some real expertise here that would be very much appreciated in that area. Do you want to ask me, because often people do, are you going to be able to make hard decisions? And so the short answer to that is yes. I've had some very difficult decisions, from telling junior people, I can't support you for tenure, which is, just heartbreaking. And it's really sad to have those conversations, but you do it, right? You say, and many worse things than that. So if you come to the reception, I'll tell you about some of them. But I mean, the point would be, you got to make really tough decisions as a department chair, as a dean, and certainly as a provost. And those decisions don't make everybody happy all the time, So I recognize that. That's a question I've gotten in this process. So what do you guys do for fun? Oh, now we're going to hear.
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm Kati Toivonen, an Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs in the College of Arts and Sciences. I think it sometimes helps you to hear the context of the question. I'm wondering about your communication style. The provost is the highest academic officer on campus and really has to communicate tough decisions and some of these processes that are complicated and take on, student success requires everyone's participation on campus.
Exactly.
So what is your style in terms of using the formal structures, informal structures, one-on-one, how do you communicate this across, and how do you plan to do it from the highest position, academic position on campus, to get everybody on board?
That's a really good question, and I think communication is so critically important, and so you do it all the time. So you walk around and communicate. So you communicate one-on-one. I as dean, have had an open door policy, and I talk to students sometimes that come in, not the ones that want me to waive a prerequisite or things that I really can't do. But I've talked to student groups and I've talked to faculty. So I think that one-on-one communication is important. I think there's all kinds of different ways to do it. You can do, you know, coffee with the provost and have informal conversation. You also do it formally. And you just do it all the time. You do it in all these different modes. People don't like to read their email anymore, do they? I don't think my son has ever read his email. And so that's one thing that you do. You do blogs. So you have to do all these different parts of it. Communication's got to be straightforward. You know, I used to have a chair that you'd have a conversation with him, and you'd come out feeling pretty good, but you didn't have any idea what he told you. And so I can't, you know, you just can't go that way, right? So you have to be very straightforward about it. And don't shy away when it's the bad news, right? You got to communicate that straightforwardly as well. And so I think you're absolutely right in saying that that's really important. Having a strategic plan to keep referring to is really very helpful, isn't it? Because you can always talk about, well, how does that play into that? And I'm not saying that every single thing you have to do or say plays into it, but you know that still is the guidepost. So I think that aids in communication. Going back to that.
Hi. I think that a problem that I think our university has is the university is becoming more and more fragmented. It's both in terms of attitudes and in terms of a physical fragmentation. Mm-hmm. And I think the attitudes are the responsibilities-centered management system tends to pit school
competition
against school. And this can be very harmful. Mm-hmm. So that has to be handled. I mean, and also in terms of the physical fragmentation, I can see how the arts campus, the downtown arts campus, can be a very positive thing, but at the same time, it has the potential of causing scheduling problems in terms of splitting the student body into the artists and the non-artists. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. I would think that the provost is going to have to address these problems and how to stimulate faculty to come together to view ourselves as a single university that is doing what we think is best for the students. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to hear how you feel about this and some of the ideas that you think mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. would be good for that.
Well, I think that that's an important point that you bring up about the necessity for a shared vision. And so we have to see ourselves as one university, as opposed to just this school or that school. And so that shared vision and the idea that we're all looking for the same trajectory, maybe measured in different ways in different parts of the university, and I think that shared vision is the important part. Now, the budget model, I don't have a full understanding of exactly how it's working now, and I don't want to speak in the absence of that knowledge, but I think that in part, you're right. You don't want it to be a zero-sum game, whereas if I gain students, then you lose students. I mean, that where it is that direct, you know, I got $10 more, but you have $10 less. I mean, you know, where does that get us? So we need to think about growth in that overall. So there's probably a lot of different strategies that are possible there. It might be that we have to go back and look at that formula again and see how that works. I mean, frankly, we don't operate under RCM budgeting. We operate under, it's incremental budgeting. You know, we have a base budget and plus a delta, where the delta is supposed to be by a formula, but in fact is that, you know, it doesn't really play out that way. And but we're in competition with each other, right? I mean, you know, credit hours isn't it's in the formula. The money doesn't seem to be exactly tied, but we still compete over that, right? And so I think that there's some of that is not, we're not going to stomp that out completely. But if we think about, if we're all engaged in student success, if we're all engaged in growing the research dollars, if we're all engaged, then that shared vision helps with that. We're a university. We're not just the Block School of Management or the School of Medicine, right? And so it's interesting that you raise that about the physical. We are, my college, we're getting ready to move into a new building. And we'll all be together in a new building instead of, we're in 3 different locations across the campus now. And so, it's let the fights begin, because, there are people who are complaining that they can't be on the same floor. So, I have to be, my center has to be on the floor, Well, not everybody. And so the physical location, how close is close enough? My assistant dean thinks we all ought to share offices. So I said, you can think that all you want, but we are not going to be doing that. And so that part of it, we're not going to, I don't have an answer to that. Some of us are going to be across campus from each other, and some of us, I know like I was my leadership group, we were most recently at the Arizona State, and we visited the downtown campus. And, that's 40 minutes away from the regular campus in Tempe. And so that's an interesting thing. There's shuttles that go back and forth all day long to help students, move between those campuses. So, there's certainly no perfect answer there, but I'm not sure we need one there. I do agree completely with you that we do need an answer about, we need to have a shared vision as a university. And I think the provost and the provost team have a really important role to play in making that come about. That's a really good question. So how's your tennis team? I'm a tennis player. And is this a day to play tennis or what? It's beautiful. So the search committee tells me it's like this all summer long. Thank you all so much for being here. So I look forward to getting to know all of you.